definitely think that this family seems like some kind of single family cult.
Mystery surrounds the Ciders family, a family of 16 children who prosecutors say were kept hidden from the outside world. But now, one expert is making a disturbing claim. She believes the Ciders family may have been living in a cult.
Inside a quiet corner of Gallia County, Ohio, 4 adults and 16 children lived under one roof for years, and almost no one outside that house knew the children existed. That's not an exaggeration. That's what prosecutors are alleging right now against the Ciders family, Gary Ciders Sr., his wife Christina, their son Gary Ciders Jr., and Jr.'s wife Elizabeth. 4 adults charged with child endangering. 16 kids allegedly hidden from schools, from neighbors, from the state itself. And at the center of it all is a fact so disturbing it's hard to say out loud. Elizabeth Ciders was 14 when she likely became pregnant with her first child, 15 when she married into this family, and over the next several years, she would give birth 17 more times. 18 children, one mother.
For years, 4 adult members of the Ciders family lived together under one roof. They lived as a family. Gary Ciders Sr. and his wife, Christina Ciders, and their son, Gary Ciders Jr., and his wife, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Ciders, as we've been telling you, married into the Ciders family at the tender age of 15. She likely became pregnant with her first child when she was 14. So she and Gary Jr. were dating when she was 14. She's married at 15. She has her first child a couple of months later. And as we now know, she gave birth to 17 more.
Let that number sit with you for a second, because we're about to find out exactly how a family gets to 18 children without a single school district, a single caseworker, a single outsider raising the alarm, and why one expert is now saying this family might not just be secretive. She's saying it might be a cult.
Was she being manipulated? Was she forced? Was Elizabeth brought into a cult? Daniela Mestenek-Young believes so. She's an expert in cults and their dynamics and will join me shortly to discuss cults in this case. Elizabeth's lawyer.
Here's what we know for certain. Elizabeth and Gary Jr. were reportedly involved when Elizabeth was 14 years old. By 15, she was married. Months later, her first child was born. From that point forward, according to prosecutors, this family closed ranks. The 6 oldest Ciders children weren't enrolled in any school until August of 2020, and even then, only online school in Gallia County. The oldest was 12 years old at that point.
Elizabeth was married at 15. The Gallia County local school district was notified that Elizabeth was withdrawing from school to be homeschooled at that time. How was a 15-year-old new mom being homeschooled? I know that I'd like the answer to that question. Was Christina Ciders, her new mother-in-law, homeschooling her? If so, what was the curriculum? And was religion a part of that curriculum?
12, and this was apparently his first documented contact with any educational system. The following year, those same children were supposed to show up for in-person classes at Adamsville Elementary. They never did. Not once. Not for a single day, and after that, according to investigators, the Ciders children were never seen in Gallia County again. No transfer records, no new enrollment, no paper trail. They didn't move on. They disappeared from the system entirely.
Christina Ciders' Facebook pages have religious imagery, crosses, and depictions of Jesus. This was a family that spent a lot of time together. A family that the prosecutor says hid children together. And we know from the superintendent of the Gallia local school district that Gary Ciders Jr. never attended the school district. There's no record of him there. And the 6 oldest Ciders children were enrolled in online school in Gallia County on August 26, 2020 for the 2020-2021 school year. The next year, they were supposed to attend Adamsville Elementary School, but they never showed up for school. Not once, not one day. And they were never seen in Gallia County again. There was no notice provided to any school district that the
Now here's where this stops being a story about strict homeschooling and starts becoming a story about coercion. Prosecutors aren't calling this privacy. They're calling it hiding. Their word, not mine.
Instead, the prosecutors said they were hidden, living an insular life, living in squalor. The question is why? Why was this family set on being alone by themselves, aside from the obvious that they may have been trying to escape children's services caseworkers? Was something more going on? Elizabeth's brother, Jeremy, posted on Facebook shortly after her arrest that she had been indoctrinated. He didn't say into what, but he claimed she had chosen the Ciders family. Were the Ciders functioning as a family who refused to live apart? Did they have a belief system that tied them together? Or were they, as some experts have suggested, a type of cult?
And when you hide 16 children that thoroughly, for that long, the question isn't just why, it's who benefits. Elizabeth's own brother, Jeremy, posted publicly after her arrest that his sister had been indoctrinated. He didn't specify into what, but he said she had chosen the Ciders family, as if there was something to choose into, something with rules, something with a pull strong enough to keep a teenage girl bound to it for over a decade. Through 18 pregnancies, through total isolation from the outside world.
Usually when we find everything looks like a cult, we are gonna find labor somewhere. And in this case, I would definitely look at the mother labored 18 times, right? Like, having children, raising children is a big part of labor that women are often doing in cults. I don't know enough to know, like, it seemed like these children were mostly kept and mistreated simply for the sake of power because they were, it seems like, very developmentally delayed. You know, I don't know whether they were having the children do actual labor in the home, but I would not be surprised to learn that at all. And it can definitely be a lot of child abuse in cults has to do with controlling them and with the leader feeling a sense of power. And children are usually very brutally controlled inside of cults.
So let's define our terms, because this is where the case takes a turn most true. Crime cases never get to.
Yeah, and what's interesting with this family, the prosecutor has claimed that these children were hidden. I've traced the education records. As far as we can tell, the oldest 6 children were not enrolled in school until August 26th of 2020, when the oldest was 12 and the youngest of the 6 was 6, and they were enrolled in online school. Before that, there are no records of them being in school. And then the next year, they were supposed to be in school and never showed up. So these kids, according to the prosecutor, have been hidden. That's the word he used. Why?
Daniela Mestine Young is an organizational
So
psychologist.
to really dig into this issue of what makes a cult as it relates to the Ciders family, I want to bring in Daniela Mestine Young. She is a survivor of a cult and also has written a couple of books on the topic. Daniela, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Daniela, first of all, tell me a little bit about how you would define a cult. What makes a cult, or makes a group of people labeled a cult?
So the very simplest definition of cult, I would say, is a group, which has to be 2 or more people. And you can have a 2-person cult, but it's a group that is using coercive and manipulative tactics in order to exploit you.
A Harvard-trained cult researcher and a survivor of an actual multi-generational cult called the Children of God, a group that used religious cover to justify systemic abuse, including exploitation of children. Her definition of a cult is simpler than you'd expect: 2 or more people, using coercive and manipulative tactics to exploit someone. 2 people is enough. And according to Young, family cults are real, documented, and often invisible until it's too late, the Westboro Baptist Church being one of the most infamous examples in American history. You don't need a robe, wearing leader with a compound and a prophecy. Sometimes all you need is 4 walls, a worldview nobody's allowed to question, and enough isolation that nobody on the outside notices what's happening on the inside. And Young says the same isolation tactics she survived firsthand are showing up here. No outside schooling, no outside relationships. A belief system that, according to Christina Ciders' own social media, leaned heavily religious, crosses, imagery of Jesus, the kind of content that on its own means nothing, but inside a pattern of total isolation starts to mean everything. Young's own words: a family doesn't need a fully developed ideology to control people. Sometimes the entire worldview is just this: our family is special, our family does things differently, and we don't talk about it outside the house. That's it. That's enough to trap a 14-year-old for a decade.
And then had 18 children subsequently after that marriage. Do you look at this family, since they are a group of 2 or more people, based on what we know, do you see some possible cult dynamics with this family, with the little bit that we know?
I definitely think that this family seems like some kind of single family cult, although it is hard to tell who is the cult leader and who are the other adults who are enabling it. What's important about religion is that cults absolutely do not require a religious world.
Now here's the part of this case that should genuinely unsettle you. Last week, defense attorney Tommy Staley asked the court for something rare: a full competency evaluation for Elizabeth Ciders, and as a backup, an evaluation for not guilty by reason of insanity. In plain terms, Staley is asking the court to determine whether Elizabeth even understood right from wrong while her children were allegedly being mistreated. Judge Rogers granted both evaluations, giving the court 30 days to determine whether Elizabeth Ciders is mentally fit to stand trial at all.
Serious concerns about her mental health. What has he observed, and what has Elizabeth told him? Last week, Tommy Stolley asked Judge Rogers to order a competency evaluation for Elizabeth, and in the alternative, an evaluation to determine whether she is not guilty by reason of insanity, meaning does she have a mental condition that would make it so she didn't understand the difference between right and wrong when her children were being mistreated. Now Judge Rogers has ordered both evaluations to be conducted in the next 30 days. Once the evaluations are completed...
And she's not alone. Gary Sr. is undergoing a similar evaluation. Christina and Gary Jr. have been ordered into competency evaluations of their own.
A hearing will have to be scheduled. Similar examinations have been ordered for Gary Sr., and competency evaluations have been ordered for Christina and Gary Jr. There is something the defense attorneys have seen that has prompted them to request these evaluations. And let's say one or more members of the Ciders family are found to be incompetent to stand trial. It doesn't mean their competency can't be restored with therapy and
for adults. 4 separate psychological question marks hanging over this entire case. Something in what these attorneys have seen, something in how these 4 people have been behaving, thinking, responding, was enough to make every single one of their lawyers stop and ask the same question: do these people even understand what's happening to them right now? Staley has publicly said Elizabeth was open to having a large family, his words, but even he seemed to draw a line at 18 children.
After that. It seems like Elizabeth was a breeding machine. Did she want this? Did she want so many children? Her lawyer told a media outlet that she was open to having a large family, but 18 children? Tommy Stolley also said in the same interview with 10 TV that Elizabeth told him that all children are a blessing from God.
He said Elizabeth told him every child was a blessing from God. Maybe she believes that completely. Or maybe that's the exact kind of language Daniela Young warns about. Language you're handed by people who benefit from you believing it. Language that keeps you pregnant, keeps you isolated, keeps you exactly where you are. We don't know which one it is yet. That's what makes this case so difficult to sit with. What we do know is where things stand right now. Gary Ciders Jr., Elizabeth, and Christina remain behind bars. Gary Sr. is the only one out, released on a signature bond, wearing a GPS monitor while the case moves forward. All 4 have pleaded not guilty to child endangering. The competency evaluations are due within 30 days, and once they're complete, a hearing will decide what happens next, whether this case proceeds as a straightforward criminal trial or whether it turns into something far more complicated, a fight over whether the people accused of controlling 16 children were themselves being controlled.
Now, I want to be very clear here. All of the members of the Ciders family who are charged with child endangering have pleaded not guilty. Gary Jr., Elizabeth, and Christina remain in jail. They have not been able to post bond. Gary Sr. is out of jail on a signature bond. He is wearing a GPS bracelet. And of course, we will keep an eye on this case and let you know how it turns out and all of the developments that come with it.
Here's the thing worth sitting with as this case unfolds. We love to picture cults as compounds in robes and men with wild eyes shouting about the apocalypse. But experts like Daniela Young keep telling us the same thing. Over and over, most control doesn't look like that at all. Most of it looks like a normal house on a normal street with normal-looking people who just never let anyone in. No compound walls required, just a closed door, a closed curriculum, and 18 children born into a world with no exit. If this case proves anything before it even reaches a verdict, it's that the scariest thing about coercive control isn't how loud it is. It's how quiet it can be for years while nobody's watching. Stay with us as this story develops, because the competency rulings alone could change the entire direction of this case.